Oh, hey, didn't see you there. Oh, this? Yeah, it's a cup of coffee. Fun fact, did you know that it actually used to be illegal? And I'm not talking like it used to be illegal once. No, it used to be illegal multiple times, all across the world. Let's start out with the year 1511, the first major event where coffee was banned. It's in the holy city of Mecca in 1511 that for the past century, coffee houses have been popping up everywhere and since turned into gathering places for people, where they drink coffee and talk about serious political slander. The current governor of Mecca at the time, Kahir Bek, called for a closure of all coffee houses, deeming that coffee has serious negative health effects, and even compared coffee to being as intoxicating as wine. In reality, though, it's speculated that Kahir banned coffee for thinking it also stimulated radical thinking, meaning that he didn't want too many people to go against him politically. This ban on coffee houses wouldn't actually turn out to be a long-term thing and would soon after be lifted by the Sultan of Egypt. Now, the next major ban of coffee throughout history will be seen around a century later in Constantinople, which is also the capital at the time of the Ottoman Empire. It is also here in the year 1633 where we meet who I would call the most successful coffee banner, and that is the current Sultan at the time of the Ottoman Empire, Murad IV. It's here in 1633 where the Sultan decides to ban both coffee shops as well as the smoking of tobacco and opium. You see, the Sultan believed that both coffee shops as well as the smoking of any kind were a source of sedition, meaning a way that people will be incited to rebel against the authority of the state. So since he didn't really feel like wanting to be thrown over by the people, he decided to ban them and instead legalized the selling of wine to everyone, including Muslims. It would only be around a year later when Murad IV found out that wine is also an intoxicating thing and decided to ban that as well. Now, the reason that I say that Murad IV is the most successful coffee banner of history is the fact that he was very brutal about the punishments at the time. Now, this is where you probably ask yourself the question, well, what kind of punishments could you possibly be getting for, just drinking something like a cup of coffee? For a first-time offense of being caught drinking coffee, you would be, could you guess it? That's right, severely beaten. If getting a couple of teeth knocked out of your skull and maybe getting a blue eye wasn't enough of a wake-up call for you that, hey, maybe you shouldn't be drinking it, then the punishment for your second offense would surely be one. Now, if you go out and get caught drinking coffee for a second time, you will be put in this situation. Now, you may be looking at this picture and thinking, what the hell am I looking at? And where the hell am I? Well, you see this brown thing right here, floating in what looks like to be a river? Yeah, that's you. In a leather bag. In the river. Left to drown. So my point just probably stands that maybe you shouldn't drink it for a second time, but in some cases, some people weren't as fortunate while even trying to drink it the first time. You see, even though I said the punishment for drinking coffee the first time was, getting beaten, some people just weren't as lucky as others. Now, according to some accounts that I could find from my research, it was also said that the Sultan of the time, Murad IV, that, also banned the actual coffee houses, would just walk around in public in the city of Constantinople, and he would just behead any person that he found drinking coffee. Now, it would only be around 7 years until the year of 1640, where the Sultan Murad IV died at the age of 27, and just very shortly after, the coffee shops were unbanned yet again, and people were allowed to drink it in public without getting their heads cut off. Now, I do know that this is a video about, all the different coffee bans for history, but we will also need to be looking at a time where coffee was actually done, the opposite to, and it was actually enforced that it should be the most important drink of a country. And we're looking at the country of Italy. It is here where we find Pope Clement VIII, who is a pope that is famously known for having a very high enjoyment of coffee. Now, around the beginning of the 17th century, a lot of the different clergies in Italy had a very big prejudice against coffee, believing that it was a satanic drink that came from the Middle East, which also ties into the different religious views at the time. Now, all the different clergies didn't want this satanic drink in their country, and for that reason they went to Clement VIII to tell him that this was a satanic drink and that it should be banned from Italy. Now, the Pope was very intrigued by this drink and still wanted to try it before deeming it to be satanic, and after he got a taste of the beautiful caffeinated drink, he was absolutely amazed by its qualities. It's for this reason that it's jokingly said in history that the Pope was, so in love with coffee that he actually baptized it. And I think just imagining that scenario in my head is, great. Clement, listen, we clergies have all had our agreements with each other, and we've come to the terms that we want you to deem a drink satanic. Is there a reason for it? Well, you see, it's from the Middle East, and you know about those Middle Easterners, am I right? They're just not they're not up to any good. So we need to ban it. Let me try it first. So do you agree that we need to ban it? This is delicious. You know how Jesus got baptized? Yeah, let's do it to this drink as well. It's great. Is he insane? Now, at this time in the Christian world, the drink was still seen as being satanic, and to counter this, the Pope decided to, quote-unquote, baptize it, since he loved the drink this much. Now, if you look at a ranking over the countries that are the highest coffee drinkers per capita in the world, you will also see that these effects come from Pope Clement, in that the top 15 countries of the world are all Western European countries, with Italy ranking 15th in the world, where they drink 1.44 coffees per citizen per day. Now, the next major coffee ban in history will actually, funnily enough, be found in a Christian country, and that will be found in the country of England with the King, Charles II. Oops, sorry, that's Charles II of Spain. Yeah, he was inbred. Now, we're talking about this Charles II, Charles II of England. Now, the reason for the banning of coffee houses in England was actually because of the same reason that our first guy on the list, Kahir Bek, decided to ban coffee houses, and that's because Charles II saw coffee houses as being a hotspot for political slander and also false information. Since he also didn't really want people to talk too much about, him being a bad king and also going against his regime, he decided to ban coffee houses outright. Now, it was at this time here in 1675 that coffee houses had actually become pretty much some of a staple for the general public, and for this reason it met a lot of public outcry. Oi, bruv, you heard about that wank on the throne, King Charles II now, bruv? How the hell can I be bossing when he be out here banning my coffee? I think we should get him off the throne, bruv, like make a revolution and stuff, bruv.
Ich stimme voll und ganz zu.
Huh?
Nieder mit dem König.
Dude, that's not even the right language. It's also for this reason that Charles II decided to withdraw his ban, since he didn't wish to get any more backlash than he already had. The next coffee ban of history is not only about a single ban, but actually a country that decided to try and ban coffee not once, not twice, but actually 5 times in total. The country of Sweden tried to ban or restrict the access to coffee from the year 1746 until 1823. The first instance of restrictions put on coffee in Sweden was in 1746, when the king at the time, Frederick I, tried to implement restrictions where he would put on higher taxes on coffee and tea, as well as implementing a state monopoly on coffee roasting. This would later on be followed up by further bans that were opposed in 1766, 1794, 1799, as well as 1817, where it would finally end in 1823, with coffee again being made fully legal. Now, the later to-be king, Gustav III, who was the grandson of Frederick I, who imposed the first coffee bans, later on actually conducted a twin experiment during his reign, where he would see what the effects of coffee and tea had on an individual. So apparently the king had ordered an experiment to be conducted using a pair of identical twins that had both been sentenced to death for crimes that they had committed. Now, the king allowed their sentence to be changed from a death penalty to life in prison if they decided to partake in the experiment, where one of the twins would drink 3 pots of coffee a day and the other twin would drink 3 pots of tea a day, and later on the results would then be checked upon and see how long they would live. Now, the first one of the 2 twins to die was the one that actually drank tea, and he died at the ripe old age of 83, which was pretty impressive back then for the 18th century. Now, the age of the coffee drinker is still to this day unknown, since he outlived both of the doctors who were supposed to oversee the experiment. Now, despite never drinking either coffee or tea, the actual king that put out the experiment, Gustav III, died before either of the participants of the group, where he died from a fate that is even worse than drinking coffee or tea, which is infected bullet wound. Now, for our last and final big coffee ban throughout history, we will be looking over in the country of Prussia, where we will meet one Frederick the Great. Now, you could be asking, well, what actually makes Frederick so great? Well, I'll tell you what. You see, in 1777, Frederick the Great wanted people to spend their money in Prussia instead of spending it elsewhere, and for that reason, since coffee was mostly made in the Middle East and in some parts of Africa, he wanted to have a more domesticated and national product, and for that reason, he tried to say that the ideal thing over coffee was beer. Frederick the Great made up the idea that beer was a more ideal drink for the nationality of the country, instead of the foreign coffee that was not made inland. So, to make less people drink coffee, Frederick the Great put an 150% markup on coffee. To also make sure that more people were drinking beer instead of coffee, Frederick the Great hired around 400 people called coffee sniffers from the year 1781 until 1787. Now, the actual job of the coffee sniffers was that they were supposed to walk around the town and, quite literally, like a dog, sniff out the coffee of all the different people that were either selling, buying, or roasting the coffee illegally. It was also this time that the actual state had a monopoly on coffee that was later on abolished in 1787 when Frederick the Great died. Now, to sum it all up about Prussia, Frederick the Great was great for the sole reason that he believed beer to be healthier than coffee. That being said, I'm gonna go get a glass of milk instead.